Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my personal channel. My name is Cocules, and I am the CEO of the Cocules Industry Spy Network Entertainment Group. Now, as you know, I am a music producer. You may have seen a couple pieces of my music already shown in a video on CoculesNation where I edited a frag montage of me playing Combat Master, though I have since deleted the game off of my machine. You'll also know that I did produce the music, but I didn't tell you which I produced it with, and that would be Ardor, which I'm going to start this video off with Ardor. Ardor is the premier open source, really just free software DAW. It is really good for the professionals, and I happen to use it a lot, despite a learning curve, but hey, I learned it relatively quickly. I tried to use it before, but I really got myself in on it, and well, yeah, I'm producing pieces left and right like crazy. That said, we are going to be getting started on this list. I'm going to be doing what I know are the ones for Linux first. This next one over here is going to be LMMS, or I think Linux Multimedia Suite, or Linux Multimedia Software or whatever. I have tried to use it before. I do not understand it, but this does have potential. The only drawback, though, is no audio support. But it does have potential. I just have to learn how to use it properly. But I'm sure people use it quite well, and they quite like LMMS. Fellow creator Unfa has actually used LMMS and Ardor in tandem before, but he has fully switched to Ardor since. Though I think he'll be doing more game development content on his channel in the future, from what I understand. Otherwise, I am going to be placing it in B tier because of that. Now, I believe these are all proprietary or commercial software. So at this point on, we have the proprietary commercial software, starting with Fruity Loops Studio. Lots of people use FL Studio. I think that, Ableton, and for Mac users, I believe that is Logic Pro. But I'm not going to get ahead of myself. FL Studio is extremely confusing, especially to me. I wouldn't understand the keybinds and whatnot, and just working with it is probably going to be much of a pain in the booty. And I will get to why Logic Pro is going to be higher than FL in just a second. I'm going to actually place it in D tier. I was considering C and D tier, and there is going to be a reason for that. Mainly because of the confusing user interface and the workflow wouldn't do you very well. Whereas Ableton Live, which is next on the list, Ableton Live is really good for the professionals from what I've heard. Artists like Andrew Huang happen to use it too, so I guess that's a plus in my book. Ableton actually has a nice looking interface. I really wouldn't know the keybinds, but then again, I'm a free software zealot, so you can also keep that. I will say I'll put Ableton Live in A tier just because of how powerful it can be, especially with the plugins that it comes with. Though I will have to knock it down a few points, mainly due to its commercial qualities that you have to pay for it. It is proprietary software, plus why would you want to go for something that you have to pay just for the plugins? It's basically just DLC. Bitwig Studio. I've not really heard about it much. I hadn't even seen anybody use Bitwig of all things. I don't know if it's even free open source software. It's probably proprietary, or maybe under like a BSD license or something. But otherwise, I am going to place it in more info needed. Next is Steinberg's Cubase. I have heard that the guys behind Cubase are also behind the Virtual Studio technology, or VSTs as we know it. And I'm also going to need some more info on it. Then we get to this right here. That happens to be Logic Pro X. Yeah, I've used Logic Pro 10. My high school actually had a studio where I got to really learn the art and the craft of professional music production. The guy who actually taught the course is a musician himself and has been known to use Logic Pro 10, but psst, hey, Jeremy, I think you should try learning Ardor. I can teach you sometime, okay? That is for my teacher, Jeremy Long, by the way, who is behind multiple projects. Anyway, because I was very used to Logic at the time, and its basically second cousin, GarageBand, I started producing music using GarageBand on day one. But then, since I really got into it, I put Ardor at S tier, mainly because of how well it works. But the Logic Pro library is also very good, and if you learn the keybinds, it can also be pretty powerful. I'm going to place it at S tier. Despite the fact that it is proprietary software created by Apple, it's not such a big deal in my humble opinion. So I will say, based upon the instruments that are, it's just a numerous amount of instruments, I will say. And on top of that, I'd also be remiss not to mention that it's essentially cross-platform and cross-compatible with GarageBand if you're careful with what you do. Digital Performer. I need some more info on that. I really do need more info on Digital Performer. I think this is a project, if I'm not mistaken, by Mark of the Unicorn or Motu. I was looking at getting one of their interfaces. I think it was the Motu M2. I think it was the Motu M2. It is USB, I think it's USB-A if I'm not mistaken, USB-C to USB-A, and it is class compliant if I'm not mistaken. Someone from Motu can correct me, or someone who uses the Motu products can correct me if I'm wrong, if there are drivers that are required. But I do need more info on it. Same with waveform. I believe this to be waveform. I also need to place this in more info needed, mainly because of how it essentially works. And I just hadn't seen waveform. I haven't really gotten a chance to use it, so there's that too. Next, Reaper. This is also another native Linux product, but it is proprietary software. I heard that Reaper was actually supposed to be pretty good as well. And there are a couple of composers that actually use it as far as I'm aware. I know there's one composer who used this software, and it looks nice, right? It looks kind of nice, and it could be really good for your workflow, especially for the price, I think. But I am going to be placing it in A tier. Next, we get to Propeller Head Reason. I've used the mobile version of Reason before, and I'm going to place it in C tier. Mainly due to the limited amount of stuff you can do on it, especially when you're trying to do this on a phone, and just why? I mean, sure, there are a lot of people that use Reason. I just don't personally care for it. Next, we have Studio One and Mixes, which both of them I need some more information on. And that would be my personal tier list for the DAWs. I have not used many of these. The only ones I've used are Reason, the mobile version, LMMS, Ardor, and Logic Pro X. But primarily I use Ardor, so you'll know where I'm coming from there. That's about it for this video. Thank you, and good night.